are going to start off laying down on our back and letting the knees bend, allowing the feet to rest flat on the floor. And let's just take our arms out to the side in a T position. Begin to relax the jaw, relax the shoulders, the neck, and begin to focus inward on the breath, feeling that rising and the falling of the chest every time you inhale and exhale. Now imagine breathing in through the nose for a count of 3 and exhaling through the nose for a count of 5. By lengthening the exhale, we tune into that stimulation of our vagus nerve, which helps with that relaxation piece of our practice. With this, we're just preparing the nervous system for our practice, getting into a calm and relaxed state. And take one deep inhale and one last exhale to release it all. Take your feet out as wide as the edges of your yoga mat and just begin to gently rock those knees from side to side. And then bringing those knees back up, finding some stillness here. Let's heel toe the feet back into the center of your mat. We'll crisscross that right foot over the left knee, opening up that hip into a figure 4 position. And gently press that knee away from you to open up that hip a little. If it feels good, you can rock the knee from side to side, just finding some mobility in the hip. If there's any part throughout that range of motion that feels good, you can find a nice stretch here. And then release to come back up to center here, uncrossing that foot, crisscrossing that left foot over now, opening up that hip, gently pressing the knee away from you. And begin to rock from side to side. Maybe holding in an area that might enjoy that stretch. And then release to come back to center. Let's uncross that leg. Okay. So taking a nice little spinal twist here, we're going to let the knees come down off to the right side. Take the T's out, or the arms out into a T position, and rotate the head so that you're looking down the arm. Finding a breath, finding some movement in the mid back here. And then coming back up through center, taking the knees off to the left and just allowing them to fall off to the side, taking your gaze down that right arm. And then release to come back through center here. And just gently draw that belly button down toward the spine. So we're flattening out that low back, keeping that muscle contraction in the abdomen. We're just alternating, marching right foot and left foot, working with the breath here. Inhaling as you step up, exhaling as you lower down. And then releasing that foot down to the floor. We'll move with intention, move with stillness and ease, coming over onto those hands and knees. Bringing the hands under the shoulders, the knees under hips. Let's drop the belly down. Inhale to look up. And then exhale to round the spine and look down. And just flowing between cat and cow here, coordinating your movement with the breath. And then finding a nice neutral tabletop or shifting the hips off to the right side. Take your gaze over that right shoulder. Bumping the hips off to the left, taking the gaze over the left shoulder. And we're just alternating here between right and left. And then finding some stillness here in a neutral tabletop. Rooting your left hand down to the ground, we'll float the right hand up behind the head. And let's twist to tap the elbow to the forearm. And then inhale to lift and look up. Twist to tap and inhale to lift and look up. Great job. Releasing that hand down to the floor, floating the left one up now. Let's twist to tap and then inhale, lift and look up. Great job. Release that hand down to the ground. Begin to rock the hips back, sitting on the heels, and then inhale to lift up. Exhale, release, and then inhale to lift up. 3, 4, and 5. Great job. Coming back up to tabletop, step your left foot out. Foot is flat and the toe points forward, and begin to rock back and forth. Finding that movement in the hip, maybe a stretch in the inner thigh here. Excellent. Releasing that knee underneath the hip, stepping your right leg out to the side. Foot is flat and the toe points forward. Begin to rock back and forth. Excellent. So I'm turning to face you, but we'll come up onto the knees here, nice tall kneeling position. And let's step your left foot out to the side. So we're kind of at an angle here. We're shifting the hips over and back. So notice how we're shifting at the hips and not rocking the upper body. And just moving in and out of this pose here. Getting into some external rotation of the hip. So that just means that you're turning the hip out. And then release that foot back underneath, stepping the right foot out. Gently shifting your weight over and back, easing in to this pose. Great job. So coming back down onto the hands and knees and tabletop, we're taking the knees out, but keeping the soles of the feet together. Shift the hips down and back and walk the fingers forward, resting the forehead down on the floor. Or you can take your yoga block and prop your head on the block to create some length in the spine and give you good spinal alignment. Wherever you are, we're finding some nice long breaths here. Feeling that belly press between the thighs as you inhale. And let go, letting the forehead melt into the ground below you. If it feels good, you can rock the forehead from side to side, just massaging that inner eye, space between the eyebrows. And then finding some stillness, relaxing the neck, the shoulders. Take one deep inhale and then exhale, letting go of all tension. If you are using the block, you can move that off to the side. And really walk your fingertips out in front of you. You can peel the forehead off of the floor and walk the hands off to the right side of your mat, but anchor that left hip down to the ground. So we're creating this nice long line throughout the right or the left side body. And begin to breathe into that rib space. And then walking the hands back through center, taking it off to the left. Really rooting that hip down to the ground. And then coming back through center here, we'll press it up into our tabletop, allowing the knees to come back in underneath the hips. walking those hands forward. We're pointing the index fingers to the front of your yoga mat, spreading the fingertips out nice and wide to open up that base of support. Let's tuck the toes and send the hips up and back into our downward facing dog. So with downward dog, I would rather have the spine nice and straight with bent knees than have straight knees and a rounded back. So let the knees bend generously so that we can, improve the integrity of our spine health. When you're here, relax the shoulders away from the ears. So imagine like you're sliding your shoulder blades down into your back pockets. Okay, so we're here. You can alternate pedaling the heels, but not changing the shape of the spine. And then find some stillness here in that pose. Knees can still be bent. Let's take the gaze up between the hands. We're shifting our weight forward onto the toes, bringing shoulders over wrists into our plank position. Finding a breath, pushing the floor away from you, and then send the hips up and back into our downward dog again. Maybe the knees want to straighten out a little more in this pose. Let's take the gaze up between the hands. We can step or walk up to the top of your mat, allowing the knees to bend here, letting the belly rest on the thighs. Reaching the fingertips out in front of you. Go ahead and peel your upper body off of the thighs, coming into our chair pose. Drawing that belly button in to flatten out that low back. Continue to breathe here, continue to hold. And let's bring those hands down in front of you to heart center. We're taking that left elbow and twisting to bring it to the outside of the right knee. Trying to keep the hands in front of the sternum and not let that knee come forward. So gently draw it back in line. And then release to come back through center, taking the other side. A nice gentle twist here, not pushing through anything too much. And then release to come back through center. Inhale, standing up nice and tall. Exhale, little back bend if that feels okay. And then lift it back up. Bringing those hands down by your side. Releasing down to the shins, coming into a flat back. Let's loop those shoulders down and back, peeling or lifting that sternum up nice and high. Tucking the chin gently to create length in the back of the neck. Exhale, release the hands down to the floor, bending the knees. Let's step the right foot back into a lunge. So this is the part where you might want your yoga blocks. So we're in our lunge here. Feet are on railroad tracks. So you have a nice wide base of support here. Pressing the hands into your blocks, let's loop those shoulders down and back, keeping that chest lifted. Continue to breathe here. Lifting that kneecap of the back leg to straighten the knee. And then softly lower that right knee down to the ground, untucking the toe. Okay, we can shift our hips back, bringing the blocks back in line with that knee, extending that front leg and flipping the toes upward for our half monkey pose. So here we want to lift up and out of the hips, growing tall through the top of the head. Exhale to hinge forward at the hips. So we're not rounding the spine, but we're keeping that spine nice and long. Continue to hold here, continue to breathe. This can be a little intense. So finding that balance between effort and ease. Bending that knee, foot is flat. Go ahead and shift your weight forward once again. You can move your blocks up to the top of your mat. Inhale, sweep those hands up overhead. And then exhale, cactusing the arms, allowing the elbows to bend, lifting that sternum up toward the sky. Exhale, release the hands back overhead, and then you can bring them down to your hips. Let's heel toe that left foot off to the side of the mat. Sweep the right hand up and over, taking a little side body stretch. And then release to come back up and heel toe that foot back into the center of the mat. Placing your hands on the blocks, you're going to tuck that back toe and spring off that back foot to come up to the top of your mat. Pretty generous bend in the knees here. Inhale, sweeping the arms up overhead. And then exhale, hinging forward at the hips. Find your flat back. Really creating a nice long line from the top of the head to the tailbone. It's hard if you don't have a mirror to look at yourself in when you're doing this. So flat back is a nice one to work on your own time in front of a mirror. And just to make sure that you're not hunched forward. Start to integrate that into your practice. Great. Exhale, release the hands down to the floor. We're stepping the left foot back now, finding our low lunge. If you want to use the blocks to keep your chest lifted, please do so. Gently lifting that back kneecap to engage the thigh. And let's lower the knee down to untuck the toe. Shifting your hips back or straightening out that front leg, sliding your blocks back a little bit. Straightening out that front leg to lift the toes, lifting up through the crown of the head. And breathe. On your next exhale, hinge forward at the hips, still keeping that chest lifted, still looking forward. Okay, so slight bend in that knee. We'll shift your weight back into that front foot. You can move your blocks off to the top of your mat. Sweeping those arms up overhead, and then exhale, cactusing the arms, allowing the elbows to pull down as you lift the sternum up. Exhale, release the hands back overhead. And bringing the hands down to the hips, we can heel toe that right foot off to the edge of the mat on the floor here. Sweeping the left hand up and over for a side body stretch. So where I like to feel this is kind of in the abdominal region, but more in the front and off to the side. So we're getting into the psoas muscle, the obliques. Those are great core muscles. And then using that core and those muscles to lift you back up, we'll heel toe that foot back into the center of the mat. Placing the hands on the floor and tucking that back toe to hover the knee. Let's step the right foot back into our plank position. Okay. Pressing that floor away from you, dropping the hips down. If you want a little bit of a challenge here, we can alternate tapping the right toe, left toe, right toe, left toe. 3, 4, and 5. Great job. Softly lower those knees down to the ground and send the hips back for a little rest in your child's pose. Let go, let go, let go. Excellent. Press it up into your tabletop, setting up your hands for your finest downward dog. Index fingers face the front of your mat, and we're spreading those fingertips out nice and wide. Let's tuck the toes to send those hips up and back into that downward dog. Nice strong core here. Take the gaze up between the hands and step or walk up to the top of your mat. We'll inhale to flat back one more time here. And then exhale to release. Inhale, sweep those arms up overhead. And then exhale, bringing those hands to heart center. So setting ourselves up for our tree pose here. So shifting your weight over onto that right leg. You're going to bring the sole of the left foot either to the inner shin or the inner thigh. Wherever you are, we're trying to lift up and out of that hip on the standing leg. That's going to make us grow a little taller. And then try to imagine pressing that knee open, okay, but not losing that hip. This might be enough to be here and to bring those hands to heart center. If you wish, you can open and grow nice and tall into our tree pose. If that's what you choose, try to relax those shoulders down and away from the ears. Finding a focal point, your drishti point helps if you are looking in front of you at the wall or maybe down at the floor. So without lowering the leg, let's bring the hands to heart center. Okay. Step your left foot back to open up into warrior two. So we're kind of playing with the balance in that transition there. Let's take a peek down at your feet. Maybe you want to let the front toe turn in slightly. That's going to load our thigh muscle a little bit more so you can get that strengthening component. If you get that front heel in line with the back of the arch foot, that's pretty good alignment. Okay, so reach those arms out nice and long. We're going to relax the shoulders down and away from the ears, but still draw that belly button in to keep a nice flat back here. Take your gaze down that front arm as you sink down into that front thigh. Nice powerful warrior two here. Let's flip that front palm, exhale, reverse warrior, let your back hand release to the back knee as you float that right hand up overhead. And then release to bring that front elbow to the front knee as you float the left arm up, either overhead or allow the arm to frame the ear for our extended side angle. Pivoting on that back foot, coming into our lunge, you might need to reposition the feet. We're going to step the right foot back, high plank, and then send the hips up and back into your downward facing dog. Pedaling out those heels if you wish, and then finding some stillness, dropping those heels down. Let's take the gaze up between the hands, marching the feet up to meet your hands. Inhale, sweeping those arms up overhead, and then bringing the hands to heart center. So other side, we're shifting our weight onto our left foot now, taking the sole of the right foot either to the inner shin or the inner thigh, wherever you are, whatever feels good. So lifting up and out of that hip, growing tall through the top of the head, and pressing that knee open is going to give you what we want. So imagine rooting down into the ground here. If you want, you can grow those branches nice and tall, reaching out, ready to receive some love. Relax the shoulders down and away from the ears. And when you're ready, bring those hands to heart center. And without stepping the foot down to the floor, we're actually going to step it back, coming into that warrior two. Okay, checking in with the foot alignment. That front toe turns in a little bit. And we're trying to get that heel in line with the arch of the back foot. Reaching those fingertips out nice and long. Relax those shoulders, but draw the belly button in to flatten out the spine. That just engages your core. And breathe in this nice, powerful warrior two. Flip that front palm, exhale, reverse warrior, let the back hand come to the back knee, but reach up through those fingertips toward the sky. Continue sinking down into that front leg. And then bringing the arms out into our warrior two, go ahead and bring that front elbow to front knee as you float those fingertips up either toward the ceiling or to frame the ear. Pivoting on that back foot, we're finding our nice low lunge here. Planting those hands, step it back into our high plank, and we'll send the hips up and back into our downward dog. So you might need your blocks handy as we set ourselves up for our pigeon pose, so just be mindful of that. So shift your weight onto that left foot. We're going to inhale to float the right leg up, three-legged dog. Inhale, draw that knee up to the nose as you shift your weight forward into a three-legged plank, and then opening up the hip to bring the shin down to the floor. Let that back leg come out nice and long, getting the hip, the knee, and the foot in line with each other. We're inhaling to grow tall, and then exhale to hinge forward at the hips, coming down onto the elbows or allowing the forehead to rest on the back of the hands. If you need a little support here, you can prop your hip up with a block or a blanket. But wherever you are, let's find a few moments of stillness, kind of exploring this pose. Anything's coming up, any tension, or do you feel like you can find some ease here today? And then press up onto those hands. As you tuck that back toe, we're stepping it back into our high plank and then shifting back into our downward facing dog. Okay. Finding a moment of stillness here. Rooting down into the right foot and floating that left leg up for our three-legged dog. Exhale, drawing that knee up to the nose, shifting the weight forward, three-legged plank. Allowing that shin to rest down on the ground as you extend that back leg out long. Hip in line with knee, in line with toe. Okay, so we're here, we're sitting nice and tall, finding your props if you need to put that underneath your seat. And then exhale to hinge forward at the hips, either coming down onto the elbows or the forearms. And then finally releasing the forehead down to the hands if that feels good. Taking a few moments here to breathe. And let's shift our weight onto that left hip. So we're going to come into this wide-legged seated position here. Okay, so extending the legs out nice and wide. Doesn't matter how wide they are. We just want to be in good alignment here. So being able to sit up tall, have the knees up to the ceiling, and have the toes up to the ceiling. So we're inhaling, grow tall. Exhale, hinge forward at the hips, walking the fingers forward. And then taking the fingertips off to the right side, allowing the shoulders to frame that foot. And then release to come back through center, taking it off to the other side. And then release to come back through center, sitting up nice and tall here. Allowing that left knee to bend. So you're going to bend your knee, bringing that sole of the foot to the inner thigh. Now let the back of the hand rest inside the knee as you float that hand up and over, taking a nice side bend, feeling that stretch throughout the side of the body. And then release to come back up to sitting. And let's take the other side here, bringing the sole of the foot into the opposite thigh. Let's sit nice and tall, proud here. Bringing the back of the hand to the inside of the knee. Let's float that hand up and over for a side body stretch, taking the gaze up and underneath the arm. And then release to come back up to sitting. We're coming onto our seat here, extending those legs out long. If you have your yoga strap available, you want to get that nice and close to you for when we come down onto our backs. So extend those legs out long, drawing the toes up to the shins. We'll inhale to sit up tall, and then exhale to hinge forward at the hips. Excuse me. So it's not about how far we can get the forehead down to the toes. It's actually about how much we can keep that sternum lifted and hinge forward. So can't go as far, of course, but that's okay. We're getting that stretch in the hamstrings to the back of the thighs. And then coming on out of that pose, we're going to bend the knees and scoot your bottom toward the heels so that the feet are flat on the floor. Let's grab onto the back of the thighs and loop those shoulders down and back, sitting up nice and tall. Go ahead and lean back until the feet hover off of the floor, shins parallel with the mat. And let's reach one hand and then the other hand for our boat pose here, holding for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Grab onto the back of the thighs and lower the feet back down to the floor. Reaching those fingers out in front of you, and again, sitting up nice and tall, keeping that length in the spine. Begin to lower, 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 down toward the floor, holding and pausing at that moment where you feel like it's going to break, and inviting that shake and inviting that holding for 3, 2, 1, and with control, lower, lower, lower to the floor. Exhale, release to let everything go for a moment. Okay, go ahead and bend those knees, feet flat on the floor, grabbing onto your yoga strap. You're going to loop that around the balls of the right feet. Okay, straightening out that knee and drawing the toes up to the shins. And let's just be here for a moment, feeling that stretch throughout the back of the leg. Finding that breath. And then imagine gluing your left hip down to the ground. Keep that glued down as you lower that right leg out to the side. So the point is not to get the foot down to the floor. It's actually how much can you keep that left hip pinned to the ground as you lower the leg. This is a nice true test of the core strength and stability here. And then release to come back up to center. We're going to grab onto the strap with the other hand and gently come across the body. You won't be able to go as far, but we're just trying to get some stretch in that outer hip. And then release to come back up through center, allowing that foot to come to the floor so you can swap your feet out, placing that left foot inside the strap, looping around the balls of the feet. And then inhale to bring it up to a straight leg, drawing the toes up to the shins, creating length in the back of the leg. And then imagine gluing that right hip down to the ground as you exhale to lower that left leg down and out to the side. And then release to come back up through center. We're grasping onto that strap with the right hand and begin to lower that leg across the body. Again, trying to keep that hip down toward the ground so we're not flopping over, but we're just feeling just a subtle stretch in the outer hip. And then let's release that, allowing that knee to bend and taking the strap off to the side of your mat. Walking the heels up toward your seat, let's press the hands into the ground as you send the hips up toward the ceiling for a bridge pose, trying to relax the low back and squeeze more of the glutes, so the back side. Lace the fingers underneath the hips and begin to walk the shoulder blades together to open up and expand across the chest. Continue to hold and breathe, checking in to be sure that the knees aren't flaring out to the side. And then releasing those fingers, let's roll it down one spinal segment at a time until the last thing that comes down is the tailbone. Excellent job. So let's take the feet out as wide as the edges of your yoga mat. Arms come out into a T position, and we're just rocking the knees from side to side. Just massaging the low back, the SI joint. And finding some stillness here, bringing those knees pointed up to the ceiling. Let's hug those knees into the chest. So grabbing onto the shins. And if you wish, you can rock from side to side here. Maybe you want to hold on to the knees and give yourself some circles here. So drawing circles clockwise for a few and then counterclockwise. All right, and then other direction. And hugging your right knee into the chest, let's extend the left one out nice and long here. Just going to give that a little hug, letting the left leg relax on the floor. And then hugging that left knee up to the chest, let's extend the right leg out long, letting it rest on the floor. And allow that left leg to come out nice and long. We're setting ourselves up for Shavasana, so if you need anything like a blanket or a pillow, go ahead and grab that now. Just taking a moment here to let the toes fall open, letting the arms come down by your side, and letting the palms rest up to the ceiling. Softly closing the eyes, relaxing the brow, the eyelids, letting go of tension in the jaw, the neck, and the shoulders. And notice all the points of contact between the body and the floor beneath you. And feel that support, feel that grounding behind the arms, the hands, the hips, the legs, and the heels. Notice the rise and the fall of the belly or the chest. With every inhale and every exhale. Filling up the body with love every time you inhale. And relaxing every time you exhale. Let's take a couple of moments here in silence to focus on that breathing and just to be with yourself. And when you feel ready, you can begin to make small movements with the fingers and with the toes. And continuing to keep those eyes closed, rolling over onto one side, and with ease, pressing yourself up to a seated position. Now imagine rooting your sits bones down to the ground below you, but lifting tall through the crown of the head, feeling energetic throughout the spine, throughout all of the centers of the body. And taking a moment here to show yourself some gratitude for showing up, having your practice today. It's been such a pleasure sharing this morning with you.